Good day, Cobber, as the Australians say. Welcome to the teams. You've got me, a very excitable Pom, and I've got a very sick Lack Dog. How are you doing, Lack Dog?
Hello, hello, hello. As the Poms say, Pom, how are you?
Just fucking massacred each of us culture. How are you feeling, my friend?
I've been better, mate. I've been a bit better. I just got the vid, so not much fun, but glad I'm vaxxed. So we push through, and Carlton teams stop for nothing. Pom, it's going to be again, as there always is. There's going to be plenty to talk about because we lost a few troops in the last game.
Mate, we did. The being over 193 curse continues at Carlton. Obviously, we do know we are going to have a change this week as you all flow in for teams. Sam Durden will miss 4 weeks. I mean, that's good, isn't it? I mean, do you know what I mean? So, I mean, obviously, we project someone to come in. We'd imagine that person is Brodie Kemp. Are you on the same page?
I mean, who else could it be? It couldn't be. There is literally no one else. I mean, you know my theory. I think I started saying this in round 2 that we should be playing Tom De Koning as a spare defender, but that would require us to have another ruckman on the list and available. So no, it has to be Brodie Kemp. There's literally no one else.
Mate, it's one of them weird things, isn't it? I mean, Carlton have been decimated with injuries. Obviously, Fremantle got their own injury concerns themselves. Media outlets reporting today that Michael Walters won't play, which will be a very interesting. Makes the backline's job a wee bit easier.
Yeah, a little bit easier. I reckon they would have sent Jordan Boyd to him because Plowman would have to play a bit taller again. But it probably eases us up a little bit. But to be honest, their forward line this week is going to be a little bit dangerous. They're probably going to play Nat Fyfe through there a chunk. He's going to be who do you think goes? Does Plowman run with Fyfe? That's going to be a really interesting matchup in the forward line.
Mate, it's going to be... Well, I mean, it's going to be interesting, isn't it? Because, I mean, Plowman historically would take Walters. Do you know what I mean? So whether that's a little bit of a change up for Carlton, do they looking at one of their other smalls? We know their smalls have kicked a few goals. A few of them have just got sneaky numbers that you forget. Croden's been pretty good for them, hasn't he, as well this year? Is it something we look at, or is it something that Carlton maybe look at playing him a little bit taller and allowing maybe Kemp to be a bit freer? It's going to be an interesting one, isn't it? Because there's a lot of things to go. There's a lot of unanswered questions with this team.
There's a lot of unanswered questions. There's a lot of holes we're sort of plugging. We're just trying to get through. Broadly, Pom, just broadly, how are you feeling heading into this match? Are we confident? Are we not confident? Obviously, we had the hoodoo over Freo for the last couple of years, but they did beat us at the start of the year this year. How are you feeling?
Mate, I'm getting old. Nothing excites me anymore. But I mean, I don't think Fremantle are unbeatable. But I mean, then again, every time we do this, someone in the fan base sees something that I don't. I think Fremantle are a very good side. No getting away from it. They'll play finals. They deserve to play finals. They're a very accomplished side. But I do keep thinking that Voss keeps talking about their way, playing their brand, their way, move the ball their way. And I think that no one in the world of football could argue when Carlton do play their way, they look unbeatable. Yeah. And even in the wet, when there was that free-flowing game, particularly in the second or the third, we made Richmond look very, very average. And it's going to be perfect conditions. A lot's been made of. I know, David, I should be a beast, but somehow I'm thinking, has been saying, Carlton's stoppage differential. I don't know about them. Which is funny because 4 rounds ago, he was saying that Carlton were the most one-dimensional side in the world and only scored from that source. You've got to remember it's wet, and wet has a huge, huge issue, particularly when you move the ball the way we do with handballs. So this is another 48%, 50% game for me. Do you know what I mean? It's 50%.
Yeah.
It's 50%. But like the legend that is Saif, I'm confident Carlton will win as long as Carlton play and turn up. They win.
Look, you can't come on this video series and tip against the Blues, but I'm with you. It's kind of like it's a flip of the coin, and we haven't really had a chance to talk about the Richmond game. I wasn't able to jump on fan cams last week. The one thing that I feel like was probably understated or over ignored, however you want to put it, we missed in the first quarter about 6 set shots from 30 meters out, not much angle. You convert 2 of those, 3 of those, it's probably a very different game. I wasn't as stressed or as worried about what happened in that Richmond game as the wider public seemed to be. It seemed to me, it was pretty simple. Like we threw one away. We probably should have won. Yes, we had a lot of injuries, but for the most part, I thought the structures around the ground stood up. The clearances is still a bit of an issue. I think we're really missing Mark Pitnet. But for me, if we can play similar football but convert, which I would tip us to convert in better conditions, I think we've got a decent shot.
Mate, I'm with you. And Longmuir did a little press conference today to say that they are going to try and escape from the stoppage as quickly as possible and try and expose Carlton out wide and try and get the ball in entry, knowing that Carlton are a little bit smaller, which I do find fascinating because let's talk about the VFL, 2 guys that are going to come in. Brodie Kemp, for me, I've seen a lot of people not rate Brodie Kemp's game last week. And when I've seen some of the comments, without being horrible, I'm like, do these people watch football? He had 15 spoils, and most people have been saying, but they haven't. But he didn't mark them. Very few players around his height do take high mark numbers, particularly in the conditions. It was blowing an absolute gale. To put it in perspective, that Liam Stocker took a kick in and it went 85 metres. You know what I mean? So speaking to Dom yesterday at the function, he was talking about that it was probably the hardest he's ever had to mark the ball. He took 1 mark in 2 minutes, and he said the ball moved about 25 metres as it started to land in his arms. Yeah. He actually was a bit scared as the ball landed because it suddenly went. So Kemp showed some good footy smarts. He'll peel off. And I think that Carlton are fine. I think with Brodie Kemp. And the other guy I want to talk about, who I think is the secret against Fremantle. Fremantle are probably one of the more organised teams down back half that you'll come across, particularly when you look at their numbers as well. They're one of the lowest sides that make unforced errors. They're 3rd in the comp for that stat. Do you know what I mean? They are one of the hardest sides to kick inside 50s against, 3rd least in the comp. Very, very well-disciplined defensive midfield and backline. I think the secret to this is a guy that we know that I love. If Terry loves Durden, I love Josh Honey. Josh Honey is the secret, I'm telling you. Absolute secret for this game. Because his game the week before, impeccable as the conduit and the link man. And last week, he scored the goals as well. But had, I believe, 5 score involvements in the week just gone to go with his 4 the week before. I think he's a very big cog in this game.
For those who don't know Josh Honey's game, we haven't seen a heap of him at senior level. VFL, obviously, he's been out for a chunk of time as well. Is he a link up in the way that a Jack Martin or a Jack Silvani is a link up, or is he a link up sort of in the way that a Zach Fisher is, more of an accumulator? Where would you class him in that realm, or is he his own thing?
I'd say that he's very similar to Jack Silvani in the terms of we've noticed, I think, since Jack Silvani has been deployed mainly in the ruck, I think we're missing that conduit from the midfield to the forward line. What I think Josh Honey brings that Martin doesn't bring is the fact that when he doesn't hit the scoreboard, he finds a way of impacting the game. And that is something that my issue with Jack Silvani is if he's not kicking goals, he doesn't really look like the link man that we're looking for, where Honey is. And Paolo as well, he liked, when I was doing my commentary at the weekend, straight line, very Tuck Miller around the stoppages in the forward half. Likes to go very direct, hit it. And I think that's something that where Carlton are struggling around stoppages. It's very one-dimensional at the moment. It's very obvious. And I think particularly in them front half stoppages, you don't have to be cute sometimes. You've just got to be direct, and he is.
Oh, it's exciting stuff. I'm tipping him to make an impact. I think it's exciting. Do we think a guy like Jack Martin is going to play? I know there was. I think he came off late in that Richmond game. Do we know yet if he's going to play for us?
Well, I believe from the feedback yesterday at the function was he got the all clear on the scan. So I'd imagine well, let's put that out to the audience and you. We were about 5 minutes away from teams. Predicted changes. Pom's predicted changes are the two Durdens out. I think Corey Durden will be rested. Martin out. We'll say rested. In Honey, Kemp, and Lockie Fogarty.
Oh, Fog, who he came on as the sub late in the game against Richmond. I really, I wouldn't be surprised. They seem to have rewarded the subs throughout the year. I'd still love to see. I said it last week as well. I'd still love to see Will Hayes crack into this team. I just think he brings some extra dimensions that. I just think he brings more to the table than a Lockie Fogarty, but I'm also not on the coaching panel. I won't judge their decisions until I see him. But I just think he had another good game on the weekend. We know he can play in the wing. He can go inside if he needed to. And he does hit the scoreboard as well, which is more than you can say for a few of the midfielders playing in the twos at the moment.
Mate, I agree with you. I mean, the only reason that I said Fogg is purely because he did play 100% Chera's role. And I do think I think Chera missing, there's no surprise Carlton have been beaten around the stoppages because Chesney has a very underrated role. Very underrated role at Carlton. And I think he's done that role. I think if they go another winger, someone like Setterfield who played a good game, or someone like you say, correctly as well, the legend that is Will Hayes, I think that gives them another option because I thought Fisher's been very good on the ball this last couple of weeks. So it'd be interesting to see what they do. I mean, I'm just going with Fogs purely on the account that I think it's like for like, and I think that's something that they've been doing it. So I think it'll be interesting. We're just waiting for the teams. I'd imagine that they're going to be dropping any second. But what are your predictions for this game? And you guys in the chat.
I don't have a specific prediction, but I think we talked about him last week leading into the game, and Jordan Boyd ended up having, you'd say, his breakout game. Like, he had a very good game. It's not going to, when you look back in the history archives, look at the stats, you're not going to jump out and go, geez, who's this Jordan Boyd fella? But he had a very good game, and I'm excited to see him again. I'm excited to see what role he's given against this Fremantle lineup with so many forwards in attack. And I think the physicality he brought around the ground, despite not being like a huge body, was really good on the weekend. I think he lifted the players around him that were maybe being a little bit passenger-esque at times.
He does, and I think there's a few players, at Carlton that are them catalysts as well. And I think that's something that we're starting to see. Sardi's one of them, Doc's one of them. I think in the forward line, I think that was something that probably went missing. I think that we haven't really got that catalyst. Durden was the first 4 rounds, wasn't he? Durden was really that kind of like guy that kind of got things going. After that, though, Durden's kind of gone a bit missing. And he's definitely the tackle magnet there. Do you know what I mean? Top 10 in the comp for it. But I do feel like we need something in that forward line. I think Cottrell, he's been playing a lot of half forward. That's why I suggested Durden may come out. If I was Fossey, I would have looked at Cottrell in the final third and been very impressed because he's energy, very, very strong energy. So could be something there that Carlton need to look at.
The other thing is, it's not a bad thing if a young player comes out of the side. You're not guaranteed to play every week, and we'd love Durden too. Obviously, this channel sponsors him. But if he needs a rest, he needs a rest. It's actually good for your development to be in and out of the team and not become complacent. And I'm not suggesting that he would become complacent, but it's a good thing to have this competition generated. And it's a good thing when that competition is being generated by guys that heading into the season, you wouldn't have thought were best 22 caliber players, your Boyds and your Cottrells and the like. That shows signs of a really strong club from top to bottom, which is not something we've seen in the last few years.
Spawn and Andrew Scott's comment here, Durden seems to have lost confidence. I think there's times he is, and I think that's what Josh Honey did really well last week. Is Sam Philp does it quite often, really gets deep up the ground like Durden does, really tracks back, really works hard in the defensive end, which is a Voss staple. But what I loved about Honey is he kind of knew to get in behind in that space and tuck in and not play his normal role, but also back his man for what he's doing defensively. And I do think at times that Carlton kind of get lost in that sometimes. And like you said, Durden, I think he's very young and he's a very good footballer. But I think now's the time maybe to rest him and give him 2 VFL games to work on his smarts. And the example I would use is Jack Carroll. Started very well in AFL. Second game was okay. Third game, he kind of went missing. Last week, when he played in the VFL game before last, he was okay. Last week, he was very good.
Yeah.
That's what you do. And then make him back it up this week before we talk about him. So, like, I've seen a lot of people say, let's bring Carroll in. Why? Do you know what I mean? He knows what he's got to work on, and he's only done it once. Do you know what I mean? Honey has come back in twice and been very good both games. Very good both games. He's backed it up. He's ready. So for me, I think that that's a very, very, very big thing that I want to see. I want to see these guys have 3 bad games, 3 good games in VFL. You come back then when you're under 25. Do you know what I mean? Really use the VFL for that learning. Because I'm going to be honest, the stats prove as well. Being a small forward, anyone can do it. It's not a specialist position like it used to be. Do you know what I mean? It really isn't. It's got 2 key fundamentals, which always does very well. So for me, it's a position that you can be manipulative with.
What I am finding interesting, Pom, or not what I'm finding interesting, what I think is an interesting discussion as we close out until the teams drop is that I think aside from our injuries, this is going to sound strange, aside from our injuries, we would have probably been a way more settled side as well. I think people are used to seeing 3-4 changes every week this year, but it's definitely not what the club would want to be doing. You would be gaining 1 or 2 form drops a week, but we're just having to see 4 guys go out because of injuries. So the Talls have rotated 100 players through that position. I think in an ideal world, we'd be way more settled, and then it would be very obvious if a Durden or a Owies or whoever needed to drop down to the 2s and what their path back into the 1s would be. We've just kind of been thrown a lot of curveballs because of the injuries. So people are expecting to see lots of changes, but a good club probably doesn't need to make any changes. I can't remember the last time we would have gone in unchanged either.
Well, I mean, a lot of them have been forced, and I think like colour in despair about the forwards is good. And I think a lot last week was made about the mids. And we know me and Paolo have got an obsession with winning it at the source. On the second rewatch before I did my review, I actually think the worst part I saw is how our half-forward line disintegrates and allows rebound 50s so easy. Because 70-odd inside 50s, it's very easy to blame the midfield for that. But it's very, very obscure to blame the forward line. And if you go back and watch it, Richmond were very, very easy getting it into the midfield. And when Carlton play well, go back at the Sydney game. The Sydney game's a great example. Our forward line was killing the tackles, was making it slow down to allow the midfield chance to set, allow the half forwards to push back because he likes them to double up on the wing. And it was a real team defense. So there's a lot of cogs in Carlton's defensive plan. And that's why I went with Fogg coming in. Good tackle numbers last week. Setterfield had some phenomenal tackle numbers as well. Just think maybe that would be something I'd look at for the fact that he is a predominant midfield, but he's also can play across that half forward line.
Yeah. No, I think it makes sense. I think it's it's clear what we need. We need someone to we need Kemp to come in because we've got no one else, and we need someone who's going to come in and tackle and create some pressure. And we've got a few options for that this week. I'm personally excited to see us it's under the roof, right? The roof will be closed. It's at Marvel, isn't it? Saturday Marvel. Yeah, the roof will be closed, so we get to see one of the greatest footballers to have ever played the game in Lockie O'Brien. Absolutely delivering peaches to Harry Mackay. It's going to be an exciting game, and I think whilst you're right that there's a lot of cogs to our defensive matchup or to our defensive structures, we're going to have to go. We're going to have to move the ball. We're going to have to move the ball quick, and we're going to have to get it into to Big Harry and Big Charlie, who I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I reckon they probably average about 8 goals between them at Marvel this year, surely, or at least close to that.
Mate, I agree with you, and I think the Marvel really is the biggest. No one talks about Voss's influence enough, I think, but I think the biggest one for me is how Carlton play at the Marvel. They're a very, very good side at the Marvel under Voss. So I think the teams are coming in. I'm just waiting.
Teams are in.
To get the confirmation because my AFL app hasn't updated, but here we are.
I can read them to you if you want, Pom.
Read them out and I'll update our sheet.
In comes Josh Honey and Brody Kemp. Out goes Sam Durden and Jack Martin, calf. And Lockie Fogarty goes to the emergencies. I'll read through line by line. In the back line, Sard, Lewis Young, Brody Kemp. Half-back line, Newman, Plowman, Doherty. On the centre line, we've got Jack Newnes, Paddy Cripps, Matty Cottrell. Half-forward, Durden, Charlie Curnow, Matt Owies. Full forward line, Josh Honey, Harry Mackay, Zach Fisher. On the ball, Tom DeConning, Sam Walsh, and George Hewitt. On the bench, Jordan Boyd, Matt Kennedy, Lockie O'Brien, Jack Silvani. And in the emergencies, last week's sub, Lockie Fogarty, Jesse Motlop, Will Setterfield, and Liam Stocker. So that is your lineup for the clash against Fremantle.
Hey, I like it. So basically, we've just got Kent, Honey in for Martin, Durden, with an emergency to be named.
Yep, essentially, and I'd say it's reasonably likely that Fogarty would be the sub again. We've done that a few times where we've run the same sub a few games in a row. I am excited to see I'm excited to see Kemp thrown to the fire. I want to see what he can do. I don't think he would have got a look in any time soon if it wasn't for injury. So I hope this gives him an opportunity to show us what he can do, knowing full well, Pom, that he hasn't had the most consistent time in defence this year. He's been thrown around a bit.
Hey, I couldn't agree more. And I think for me, the big thing here as well is that I think Carlton have really put a statement out in this team that someone like, who we're talking about, a few people in the chat, Durden, will he come out? The fact that they've stuck with him in this game as well, not made wholesale changes like you were just saying, Let Dog. We've struggled to play the same 22 every week. I think it's huge here that they've tried to put the 22 that they could. And I think Kemp's an obvious change. And I think, Honey, you can't argue with it. He's better than Martin. And I actually think, big Pom call, Martin's retired after this game.
Wow, wait. That is a big Pom call. I'll just go through quickly the Fremantle lineup. By the way, we should shout out our boy Jack Newnes, 200th game this week. The Fremantle changes are: out goes Blake Acres, so he's a really good wing this year. Darcy Tucker, who was the sub, Walters, and Sam Switkowski, which is good news for us, by the way. Two damaging forwards out. In comes Liam Henry, Matt Taberner, and Michael Frederick. Now, Taberner, there was question marks over his health. He played well in the Waffle last week, and then I think last time he played Essendon at Marvel earlier this year, he kicked about 37 goals. So he does like playing under the roof. But they've got essentially four forced changes, Pom. So to our two. So that's a win to start, sort of.
Mate, all their ins is shit. Do you know what I mean? Wouldn't even play VFL football, Liam Henry, Frederick or Taberner for Carlton VFL, so don't worry about them. Them melts. I mean, let's get some predictions in the chat. What I want from everyone in the chat is margin and your best on ground. Best on ground.
All right,
Go on, give me it.
I'm gonna give you a margin of we're gonna win by 5 points. So you can tell I'm super confident. And my best on ground for the Blues, just looking at the lineup here, I'm giving it to Josh Honey. He comes in, he does a Zach Fisher. He kicks 4 goals. That's what I'm doing.
Get out.
Zach Fisher from West Coast.
What, that COVID medication you're taking is paying off, isn't it?
What about you? What's your prediction,
Give me
mate?
a big call as well in chat because Lek Dog's made 4 goals for Honey. I'm going to say Carlton by 14. Best on ground. Walsh. I think it's a Walsh game. And I think Tom's big call. Josh Honey will have 10 score involvements.
Nice. I like that. So we're both predicting big things from Josh Honey. No pressure on him coming back into the senior team for the first time this year. We're expecting big things. You know what? If Honey doesn't kick 4, George Hewitt is just going to be the best on for the Blues because George Hewitt is always the best on for the Blues because George Hewitt is the best pickup of the off-season and there's no discussion to be had about it, Pom.
Tell you what, Terry here, Blues by 6 goals. 10 between them. Look at him. I love this one here as well from Big Drew, Andrew Scott. Jordan Boyd definitely has locked down the back pocket position at Carlton. He's been that pressure valve release player. 20 touches at 100%. These are good, this chat. You're doing well here. You're sticking to the mandate. Pom loves it. I mean, some good ones here. Ron Riot. I mean, that is the question. I know there's a few Freo Man fans in chat. And obviously, I know being from Fremantle, if you get time to get away from your wife, or as we call them in England, your sister, you might be able to answer this question here for me. But how does their back line... That was so subtle. Fucking so subtle.
It was so good.
I can't see a way that Brennan Cox and Alex Pierce, Scott, Mackay, and Kerner.
I mean, yeah. Look, we've talked a lot about their forward line, and Terry's right to call us out. We haven't talked about our forward line. The boys are going to kick 10 between them. Sauce is going to kick a couple. I've already said Honey's kicking 4. That's 16 goals already. So it's a good question. I don't know what you can do. There's no way Charlie Curnow is going to play again like he did it against Richmond again. It's just not going to happen.
Well, I got the privilege of sitting and holding Charlie Curnow's hand, thanks to friend of the channel, Tracy. So this boy here, he's going to kick some big goals because he was very disappointed with himself last week. And I saw Paolo in the chat. Tell you what, Paolo likes this game. I'm going to give the chat one more game as we've got 2 minutes left. Give me your headline for the end of the game.
Oh, that's tough. We need people in chat to suggest some. So I can't even think of a pun right now. I'm just going to say, okay, something like Silvani lives up to his name or something, because obviously we're going to have an injury in the back line. They're going to throw Sauce back and he's going to have some game-saving mark. That's my prediction. There we go. Silvani lives up to the name.
Do you know what I mean? I'm going to go with honeymoon period over Felonio question mark. And the first article will be, I sat behind Justin and when Honey's 5th goal went in, he was sulking in his chair.
That's good. That's good. There's a few good ones in chat.
Patrick here, Docker's shocker. Hey, you read too much papers. Too many papers. I like that. Twin Towers sink the anchor. I like that. I like that. Love this one here as well. The anchor sinks on top 4 chances. Newnes sinks 3 again. Oh, imagine that. Imagine that. Newnes sinks.
Mate.
Imagine.
We need to
our boy, the medium-sized shirt wearing who should take a large Jack Newnes, bangs a goal.
You know what? I've never told anyone this, Pom, but when I was watching that game, I was at my old rental. I punched the wall because they gave him the kick, and I punched the wall. I was like, God, this is never gonna go. Like, I was just losing my goddamn mind. And then I turned around and he kicked it, and I think I saw God.
I do actually, if memory serves me correct, this game when Newnes did that, I actually kicked the wife's mother-in-law's ashes and broke the urn. I do actually think that was the game. From memory, I do. Michael asks, my good Danish friend, has Charlie put an order in? He's going to go big. He's going to go get big. Well, unfortunately, half hour seems to come out very quickly here. We've got no polar bear here test. I'm too famous for polar bears now. But that is the end of the show. As always, it's a pleasure. Lek Dog, thank you very much for joining me. I know that you are on the precipice of death at the moment. You are in the throes because you've got man flu and COVID.
Yes, no. Well, nothing keeps me alive like doing the show with you, Pom. So as long as we keep doing the show, I should still be kicking.
I don't want a death on the show. But as always, good reviews. Make sure we've got loads coming up. If you haven't checked it out, the Jumper Punch was sensational on Tuesday. That was good. The Almost Blues Brothers podcast, I believe that's up this morning as well. That'll be grouse. I'll be on the watch along. Well, come and see me. We abuse people from WA this week. It's a specialty. There'll be more sister jokes. Also, Terry's previews just come up. My preview will be there tomorrow. Like, Doug, what are you doing this week apart from dying?
Our podcast dropped earlier in the week. The Mailbag podcast, where we answer your questions, dropped earlier today. There's a cheat sheet for Supercoach, stockreynolds.com.au. You'll see me around. I won't be going to the game this week because I'm not allowed to. So, Pom, I might have to jump on with you and watch along.
Mate, you're welcome to jump on with me, mate, and abuse people. Good luck as well. I know Gratz and Big Jacko, they're fans of the channel. They're in chat there. Fremantle, best of luck to Fremantle, but not too much good luck. We'll see you on Saturday where we beat Fremantle. Sayonara. Peace. Love. Be well.